Move around inside Elliot's loft. It's time for another edition, another episode of When Black Men Talk. Myself, Mark Elliott, Mr. Charles, and D. Maurice. We get together once a week and have conversation. And usually we get together. He may not sound like it, man, but when we first kind of get started, D. Maurice is kind of a little draggy. He's tired. We realize he lives in Illinois. He's like an hour behind myself and Mr. Charles. He stays up late all the time, right, Mr. Maurice? You kind of go to bed about what, 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, get up about 8.
I don't stay up all the time. Charles called.
Well, man, I kind of tease you about that, man. But I want to throw some out to you, gentlemen, because I saw something this morning. I was looking at the one NFL pregame show. Actually, I saw it over the weekend, and they were saying that T.O. called out Debo. T.O. is usually an NFL ex-receiver, played for the 49ers at one point. He called out a 49ers current receiver, and he says, like, it seemed like Debo is more concerned about what he wears to the game as opposed to how he's playing the game. So, we could take that in a lot of different ways, but I wanted to come and talk about this for a second because to me, if another man calls another man out, should we look at that being a form of disrespect or should we really look at it, possibly, Mr. Charles, as constructive criticism? Your reaction to it?
I think it depends on what it is, man. So I mean, like To's, if he comes out and saying what he's saying about this man, what he wearing to the game, I mean, dude, for real. I mean, what was you doing? I mean, somebody could say what you doing with four baby mamas. You know, it could be a lot of stuff. You could always nitpick. My question is two things: Are you hurting anybody in the references to what you're doing with your outside behavior, and are you coming to play on Sundays, particularly from the pros? College, a whole different thing. But that's what I'm looking at. I can look at Michael Irvin's life and go, man, this dude is a damn train wreck. But all I cared about, you showed up on Sundays and you didn't hurt anybody in between the time that you need to be here. So I think it can be more or less, in that standpoint, it could be just more or less like not really constructive criticism. You just really kind of going after him because you don't like the way he's moving. And if you want to wear a leather miniskirt with heels, that's what you do. And you come on Sunday and you do what you do. Who cares?
But outside of him basically commenting on his particular apparel that he's wearing and what he's saying about his play, let's separate, the part of him basically talking about what he's wearing. But in a way, there is some constructive. You can look at it as an insult, a little bit something that you're not playing up to what we know you usually play. So to me, is that a shot at Debo, or should Debo should take it like, you know what, he's right, and I should probably give a little bit more. That's what I'm concerned. That's why I kind of want to zero in there, Mr. Charles. So I get the point about him wearing what he's wearing. We all have opinion about that. But I'm not Tebow. Tebow probably said that to really kind of get his attention, and he probably not like what he's wearing. Let's be honest. Most of us had our comments about what he's been wearing to the game lately. So he has a right to what he want to wear. But when he says something about his play, and in actuality, when T.O. was an actual ex 49er, should excuse me, should Debo look at it as he's taking a shot, or see it more of man, I'm trying to motivate you, and this be a little more constructive about it?
Well, I mean, I think it's still misconstrued because you're mixing two things. If you're gonna talk about his play, be direct. And I think that's what's wrong with now. Okay, you're a Hall of Famer, you're great. If you want to talk about things you think I could do better, okay, I don't run the route right. I could be better. I could do this. I could get more separation. I could be specific. Because when you put you put two things out there, people go, "What the hell are you talking about?" So if I'm him, I'm looking more as an insult because it's like, look, if you have something to say, and both former 49ers, if you really want to help me, call me. Let's have private sessions. Come to the camp. Let's talk. Let's talk that way. Other than that, you just running your mouth in the media. And we know what social media does. It runs off the rails. That's why we're talking about it right now.
There it is. Mr. Charles, I'm not Mr. Charles, Mr. DeMaurice coming at you with the same thing, man, because realistically, should Debo look at it, he's kind of insulting me, or kind of look at it maybe a bit more constructive criticism about his play?
Well, I think, yeah, you're right. We all talked about it to some degree. I think a couple of weeks ago, I made a statement about it. Anyway, I think it should have been done privately. all this social media, getting in the press, and kind of trying to blast people, especially if you're a player and a former professional player, even if you're dead on and spot on right, should be done in private. But I think Debo should really take it in into consideration, because all TOs really asked, he probably didn't do it in a very um, elegant way, but saying, where's your focus, man? Where's your focus? Because it seemed to be your focus is on more of fashion and how you're showing up, as opposed to what you do on the field. And without the things that you're doing on the field, if you don't do those really well, nobody's going to see what you got on. So he could have done it more constructively, and he could have done it privately, but it's out there publicly. I think Debo should really kind of focus on, okay, let me take what I can take from what's being said and use it in a way that's going to make me a better player, or to get my commitment to what I'm doing a lot more focus on my commitment.
Okay. Let me give this question, and I like the answer two gentlemen gave, but I want to kind of down a little bit more and make it a little more personal, because what I really want to kind of hit here, as men, we carry a sense of ego, we carry a sense of pride. Some of us carry way too much ego, some of us carry way too much pride. But in reality, just as individuals, now I'll come to you first with this one, Mr. DeMaurice. Can I or Mr. Charles or someone else call you with constructive criticism, and you take it and not make it personal?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've all done that to each other at some particular point in time, but we don't do it publicly. We do it privately. We do it with a phone call. We know that we're doing it out of love. We're not doing it out of, like, trying to hurt the person or bring the person down. We see something and go, hey man, you might want to take a look at this, or this is what I'm noticing, or this is what you need to watch out for. And so I think as men, we do it. We take constructive criticism because we know the relationship we all have with each other, and that we could say this without neither one of us getting personal about it. Like, oh man, you can't say that because such and such and such and such. I know when you pull my coattail to something, that you doing it out of love. You've been doing it all all my life, and I do it to you. Like, hey man, this is I don't know about this. So, and Mr. Charles does it to me too. I go back with him too. And so, but we know we're doing it out of a position of love and respect. And we want our brother to do well. And we see something that you may not see at that particular time because you're in it. Sometimes you can't see it. So we're coming from a place that is private. We're pulling each other's coattail about something that we notice, and we want you to be better. And so I don't know if they have that relationship. They were part of the same organization. I don't know if they are men of honor, but this is T.O.'s way, and probably the only way he knows how to try to get to this brother, to say, hey man, you could do some things better. And you know, to me, again, it should have been privately, but I think all men should be able to take constructive criticism from men who have their best interests at heart.
That's a solid point right there. Being the brother's keeper, Mr. Charles. So again, if I or Mr. Reese will pick up the phone and say such to you, will you take it as constructive criticism, or would it be more of a personal thing that you may feel?
No, pretty much. I'd say constructive criticism because, as D. Maurice mentioned, one for me depends on the person, right? And where and how I see you, and with the relationship that we have, and then how you coming. So I think that's a lot too because I'm saying, okay, all right, well I know you got my best interest at heart, and I'll receive that, but I'm gonna be straight up, bruh, and this might be for other people too. If your shit's raggedy, bruh, you got stuff at your house that you need to clean up. I'm talking about really raggedy. You might go, damn, you trying to tell me about something? I'm gonna look at you kind of like, okay, I'm gonna listen to you, but I'm like, yo, bro, you might wanna. And that's one thing I try to do. I'm not perfect at all, but I know if I have a major issue the last thing I'm gonna try to do is be trying to give somebody some advice. Things happen, but I think it depends on the person who you're dealing with. But you sometimes you got people that like might be in this case with T.O. You don't know him, and he coming at you in a different kind of way. And granted, it may be he may mean well, but how you approach, how you go about it, and what you're saying. And if you don't know me, and if I'm looking at you and you don't know me, I'm like, dude, what the fuck is you talking about? Can you be a man and come to me? And that might be ego, but at the same time, I'm like, you just talking because somebody asked you because you think you are one of the greatest of all time. You're a Hall of Famer, and you're gonna tell me because I'm still in my career how I should have done it. But I'm like, your ass ain't perfect either. So I think it's a two-edged sword, bro.
Can I jump in
I
real
hear.
quick?
Absolutely, man. Please roll, sir.
I remember being out. I'm thinking I'm dressed up. Everything tight. And I don't know if the guy was homeless, but he was just out there in the street. And he said, "Young brother, told me what was untidy about my dress." And I kind of looked at him, and I'm like, "Oh, okay, good looking out." Now he wasn't dressed like he was going anywhere, but he took it upon himself to kind of like, "Hey, man, I want to let you know, you stepping in a situation, and it ain't all tidy, it ain't all right." And it was an older cat, and I'm like, "Oh, appreciate you looking out." So yeah, you kind of know when people are kind of not criticizing you and trying to look out for you, and then people who just aren't, and they trying to just criticize because they don't want to see you on top. They don't want to see you kind of grow and glow. So yeah, it really depends. It really depends. But in that situation, it reminded me that Mr. Charles said that like your stuff ain't right, but they may see something you don't see, and they looking out. And so I never met this guy before, but he was like, "Hey, young blood, tidy up this right here." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, thank you." I didn't see it. I didn't even notice it. And I would have been really embarrassed walking into the situation I was getting ready to walk into if that wasn't kind of, tight at that particular time.
Can I say one
I
thing
hear
real
you.
quick?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Keep it going. Yes, sir.
So thank God that he knew what the hell he was talking about.
Yeah.
Because what if he didn't know what he was talking about? And then you like, oh, he's looking up. You know what the hell he's talking about. Thank God. So I know it can vary, but I don't know, man. Maybe that's just me. Maybe I got a stigma and I need help. And so I'm asking for y'all to bear with me as I work through my stigma. I'm
No,
receiving
I mean,
advice from no, just I'm being straight up. I said, bear with me as I work through my stigma, listen, dealing with motherfuckers that I don't know, and I hope they show me right. I'll think about it. I will think about it and go there at that. But I'll be like, man, what is you talking about? Anyway, maybe that's my stigma, and I receive it, and I'm gonna be trying to seeking out therapy to help myself with that. That's all real. That's real talk. Thank you.
I, I got a thing about when I see a couple walking down the street, and this is what my mama taught me a long time ago. That you never let a woman walk. If you care about a woman, you never let her walk on the outside. You let her. You put her on the inside of you. And even if you're walking with a woman that you're not involved with, you're protecting her. Because my mom, I used to walk faster than my mom. My mom was very short, and sometimes I would make a mistake of having her on the outside. She would just come up, run up beside me, and pop me up spot up back of my head and say, "You know what you're supposed to do." And I would walk on the outside and slow my pace, so so people know that she's protected, and this is my queen here. And so it's so many times I want to tell guys when I see that younger guys that sometimes I do, but sometimes I'm like, I'm gonna stay out of this because I don't know how it's gonna be received.
yeah, that's the thing, man. Because I see that a lot too, Mr. DeRisa. I see a lot of younger cats, and she's walking on the outside, and basically he's on the inside, and ironically, you look at it, and sometimes I look at him as being weak,
Mm,
and my initial reaction is like, that cat is weak because, and again, he may never have been told, but I think I see weakness there in a couple of ways because as a man, we should always want to protect and put her in a situation where we are going to protect her from all particular things that may come her way. So if you're not thinking that way as a man, I'm looking at you automatically like, what's up with you? There's some weakness there.
Mm.
And, it's great my aunt Dolores, your mother spoke that to you. No one said that to me, honestly. That's just something I picked up on my own. But yeah, man, I kind of do that. And we kind of look at, I know myself, I look at men and I don't even try to, and I do this with anyone probably, and I think we all do this in a sense. In particular situations, we do a quick evaluation, a quick read, and we make our determination on someone's character, someone weak, strong, whatever. It just happens naturally. So when I see cats doing that with women outside, I look at them being weak. I'm not looking at them that have been told, whatever. And sometimes I question why is she even with him.
Yeah.
Just my quick reaction to it. But I want to go back to that because I feel Mr. Charles, I want you to think what you said was wrong, man, because a lot of people feel that way.
No, it's not. It's not. It's
It's
not.
no, not wrong at all, man. Because a lot of people feel that way. Who are you to come to me if you're act eight together and say something to me? And don't get me wrong, that's like a natural instinct that we feel when somebody's kind of says something to you anyway. So I've learned over the years, realistically, to focus more on what they're saying. If I can use it for my benefit, oh well, oh good. If I can't, it rolls off me. It just go and let it go away. But I know I've been in situations, work situations, where I've had, you know, the supervisor, the program director says something to us as a group, and I look at some of my fellow workers, they wouldn't take it to heart because they felt like, it ain't constructive, it's kind of like an attack. Man, I took it, I use it to better myself. And I've always looked at it that way. If I could take something that's going to better me, like Mr. DeReese said, the guy said something to him that kind of made him feel, sharp enough for that night. If it can be to my benefit and it ain't cost me nothing, hell, I'm using it. I'm using it, and it's going to be for me. Gentlemen, I'm going to swing this over to, we was talking about some other cats in sport. I'm going to swing this over to another cat in sport. And to me, this man is a man's man. We don't hear that terminology that often. A man's man. But when you hear it, you know what it means. So I'm not going to go try to explain it to you. If you don't know what it means, go ask somebody. But this cat is young. And from the moment he kind of came on the scene, to me, he's been picked at, he's been looked at a certain way, and he has stood tall. I'm talking about one Joe Mazzulla, 36 years old, a nonsense brother that coaches the Boston Celtics. And he's intense and he's straight direct. So the media to me basically have always been trying to come at him. And I saw a video clip the other day, and he was saying, for the most part, they asked him about, something that people say about him. He said, I don't care what they says about me. He said, I've taught my kids, if someone says something to you, basically, and this is real, if someone says something to you, basically, you choose whether it hurts your feelings or not. You allow that to happen. If they don't put your hands on you, don't give a shit about what they say something to you about. If you can benefit from it, if it helps you, use it. If not, don't worry about it. Now, to me, so the reporter came back and said to him, but these are words. He didn't even understand what the man just said to him. But words carry weight. He's like, no, they don't, unless you allow them to carry weight. Now, part of this, what about him that I love, he's in a town playing for a franchise that used to be one of the racist areas in the part of the country when it comes to sports. Now, I'm not saying some of that has cleaned itself up either, because they still deal with some stuff in that area. So some of that might be present when the media is really talking to him. But he goes about and handles his business. And to me, this man has brought the championship to that town, that area, in the NBA circle. I don't even see him getting the respect that he deserved to get respect. Because when they talk about the Boston Celtics, they'll talk about the players. Let's be honest. How often do they focus on him as a coach? Because if he was the coach previously, the white coach that came from the college ranks, who couldn't win a championship with the same players, basically. If he would have won it, oh my goodness, man, they would be throwing parades all around the NBA. He's a great coach. I remember hearing people on ESPN, oh, he's a good coach. He ain't done nothing. How he's a great coach? No, they call him great. He ain't done nothing yet. Oh, he's a great coach. Tony Kornheiser, I'm gonna call him out and said this. Oh, he's a great. What makes him great, Tony? He hasn't done nothing yet. But yet, Joe Mazzillo win. Don't even speak his name. Don't speak his name, Mr. Charles, Mr. DeMaurice. I want to get your thoughts about it, bro. Our thoughts about it. I'll come to you first, Mr. Charles.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I think because a lot of times in this situation that a lot of people, for instance, like myself, we don't know him, man. And maybe that's on us. That's because the media did whatever how they approach it. But we don't know him. We don't know about him. We just know what he's come in and done. Even the previous coach that got in trouble was now in Houston. He was the guy that was receiving all of the accolades and the rah rah because everybody thought he was the guy, but he couldn't deliver a championship. And Mazzillo is like you mentioned, he just come in and do his thing, and his personality when you see him, because he's so straightforward, he doesn't have that type of invigorating personality that draws you to him. He's about the business, and I think because of some of the moves that supposedly that the GM made, people see that as the reason why they're able to do it. Like for instance, I don't know who's involved with picking up Holiday and the big boy Porzingis and a couple other guys. They kind of see it that way. And as great as this coach is, and because that's the other thing too. They can make all the moves they want to, as far as the GM is concerned, but it still takes the coach to bring it together, try to help develop chemistry, get people to accept their roles, and not only that, dealing with the X's and O's and making the right decisions at the right time to get over the hump. And I think Boston struggled with that for the longest time with Tatum and Brown not stepping up or getting in each other's way. And I think the combination of the addition of the rock they added to the rosters, but also the factor that the coach was able to put everybody together, everybody understood what the mission was to get it done. You got to give that guy some credit for that for sure.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. I love his straightforwardness. I love that. I love the directness. And I think sometimes, too, when people realize they can't puncture you, they tend maybe not to like you as much. So when they can't puncture him and get him off, off his spot, they try to find other things and ways to come at him. And that happens, but he stands tall. He stands firm. And I love him, Mr. DeMaurice. So I'm not saying we're giving this man some flowers, but think about this for a second, man. We're all way past 36. And I think when he took this job, he was 33, 34, maybe. Let's go back to when you were 33. Could you imagine an NBA franchise turning that position over to you, where you have to be responsible, you have to be in charge, you have to lead young men that are making much more money than you? They must be able to look at you and see something in you to say, you know what, I'm going to follow you. That right there to me is amazing one itself. So when I speak his name and I hear how, and I saw him over the past couple of years, how he handled himself, how he's direct, how he's no nonsense. He's not afraid to speak. I mean, we talked about race, and they got quiet. He did that about a year ago, and that story got quiet. They didn't want to hear about that too much. But I love the fact that he's standing there. He doesn't play their game. He's not bowing down. He looks him straight in the eye and says what he has to say. Your reaction to one Joe Mazzillo, Mr. DeMaurice?
Yeah, the words that come to mind when I think of him is grounded and solid. And I think he learned a lot from his predecessor and how to really kind of navigate his way through the press, because the press right now is they're in silly season. They're asking really dumb questions. They're asking questions that don't really make sense. They're really not about the game, and they're trying to get clickbait from these questions. And not to get off him, but I like what Mike Tomlin did the other night, where they asked about Antonio Brown wanted to come and play for the Steelers, and he'll play for free. And Mike Tomlin just walked off the stage. And so Mazzulla is grounded. He's solid. He's no nonsense. And I think that's why he's in that leadership position, because, you really can't get to him. He is, wherever he learned it from, he learned how to navigate his way through not only doing his position and doing it very well and leading a championship team, but dealing with the outside things that may distract you. And you can see that he's really focused. He's not distracted by the little petty things that people will come up with. And he's got to have learned that through that organization and through organizations he's been through, college and other organizations he's been a part of the coaching staff. So I think he was a player also. So he knows the ins and outs of the game. He knows what can kind of bring you down. And he's solid in his beliefs. He's grounded in his beliefs, and you can't take him off it. So you got to admire a person like that. And those are usually the leaders of men who can be able to do that and don't and not compromise anything for being who they are and being able to lead men. And I think his team, the players, see that, and you can see that you can see when players kind of take on the characteristic of the leader or of the coach, and you can see them doing that. And I think that kind of catapulted them into a championship arena, because a lot of folks was criticizing Tatum and Brown and all these different players, and that they can't get it done, they can't win the big one, they're not that good, all that other stuff. And he was able to, do some things and use some techniques to keep them focused and say, it's us against everybody else, and we are good enough and we are talented enough to do this. And even I didn't think, even though Boston was doing well, I didn't even think they could get it done. But it's a testament to his leadership style and him being solid and grounded that helped that team get to the promised land.
We should always salute greatness when we see it. And what that man has done is greatness. And what he's basically just not the championship that it stands by itself, but how he's handled himself, how he's basically allowed them to see something to mirror, to stand behind and to follow. What's better than that? What is better than that? As a man, what is better when people can look at you and see something about you and say, I could take something from about you or from you, and I got to use it to make myself a better, improve what I'm doing better, who I am as a man. Come on, there's no
Yeah,
better gift in the world.
he's little
There is
Bill
no better
Russell,
gift.
man. He's little Bill
Yeah,
Russell was the same way. He's little Bill Russell.
yeah, absolutely, man, without a doubt. I want to move this to a man that we know a lot about, or we're fond of, and I'm assuming we know a lot about. Over the years, he's kind of grew up with us. He's been with us. We idolize him to an extent. We admire what he's done. We admire him as a man. Speaking of Denzel Washington, and this came out recently. I was reading about this, and I want us to spend a little time talking about it. He stated that he's on his journey of sobriety from alcohol and drugs, and he's almost approaching the 10-year mark. He acknowledged that he has done some damage to his body. And this kind of took me by surprise after I read that. But this is where the surprise was about it. Not the drugs and alcohol, in a sense, but when he said that in his childhood, he used acid. Now, Denzel is just getting ready to turn 70. Now I'm at 61. So when I was coming up, I heard of people in my generation doing such drugs, acid, whatever. I couldn't even imagine acid being close to my body. So when I'm saying surprise, I'm a little surprised that that's something he dabbed into. But he also wanted to say that back in 2000, when he lost the Oscar for leading actor, he used alcohol to cope with that loss. And he says a lot of his drug and alcohol goes back to his days previous to being into Hollywood. But interesting enough, I'm not sure if you saw the movie Flight. That was a movie where he played an alcoholic pilot. And he said after doing that movie, that's when he determined and decided he wanted to basically give up drinking and doing drugs. It's amazing how God gave him that script to basically show him himself. I mean, his performance in that movie was amazing, nothing less than amazing. But to basically kind of maybe mirror some things that was going on in his life that kind of turned him around. So I'll come to you first with this one, Mr. DeMaurice. We hear about one of the baddest men on the planet opens up and share, some things about his life at a time where he didn't have to say anything. He could have kept that. Who knew, knew. He could have kept that to himself. But by opening up, he gives us an opportunity to learn from one, to basically understand him a little bit more, to see him whole, not just as the actor of many roles we've seen him play in life. With all that, what comes to your mind, sir?
What comes to mind is I was on social media last night, and the sister was on there talking about the same thing, and she was like, "In them two movies, Training Day and Flight," he's like, Denzel wasn't acting. That was him. That was him under the influence. And I thought that was dead on because Flight was like a confessional. I mean, it was eerie that he comes out with this because if you look back at that movie, it was almost like a confessional that he was purging himself. That yeah, I screwed up. I screwed up, and yes, I did this, and yes, I did this, and how it could have cost a lot of people, not only myself. And so I think he's thinking about maybe people in his life and how it could have cost them. And it also takes me back to I read something a long time ago about him and some other friends that they would have this kind of period of debauchery where they would go out and do any and everything like on a boat or something like that, and it's almost like they had this thing a yearly thing that they would do where every bad habit they had they would just do it, get it out their system, and then go back to their normal lives. And so it made me think about that when and that came out because I wasn't kind of like surprised about it, but because everybody has their own thing that they do. But I commend him for coming out with it. It may help somebody else or another actor or another um, person in regular life. It really kind of struck me when I saw that, and him and Chadwick Boseman, who was giving him a salute one day, and it was almost like Denzel was sitting there like, I don't deserve this. I helped out. I helped your career with that, but I don't deserve this. I'm not worthy of this, of all this praise you're giving me. And so it made me think about his facial expression. And I think the tears in his eyes about that. Maybe he was thinking about that, and maybe it was within the 10 years of his sobriety. I think it was in the 10 years of his sobriety because Chadwick was calling him a king. So I think maybe he's doing this that he's like even kings have a chink in their armor, and that we're not perfect, but we're all striving to be that. And so it gives us mere mortals some hope that we can get to perfection, like Denzel Washington. But I admire him. I've always admired him. I admired Sidney Poitier, and realizing that after reading his book and then finding out some things about him, he wasn't a perfect man. Even though we looked at him as this icon, he wasn't a perfect man at all. And what he did, if you get a chance, what he did to Diane Carroll was criminal. It was really criminal, and we see him in all these illustrious roles, but it just shows that these folks are human, and if we can learn lessons from them, cool.
You speak of Sidney Poitier and Diane Carroll. I automatically thought of Richard Pryor and Pam Grier.
Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah, yeah, I
That
thought
was
of
horrible.
that. Yeah.
That was horrible.
Yes, sir. Yeah, that was like, man. Some things just stay in your mind. They stay stuck in your mind. You don't realize, but they pop up at those times. Mr. Charles, basically, we're looking at one Denzel Washington, illustrious career, another stand-up man. Um, basically, is exposing some things about his life that we may had an idea about, but he's making it clear. And it's funny you say, Mr. DeMaurice, that the lady said, excuse me, he was. I'm assuming she was kind of saying that he might have been under the influence while he did those two roles, but he simply stated he never worked high. He said whenever he had a project to do, he would stop all activities with drugs and alcohol. Those are his words. But his works, his projects, it never interfered. So whatever you saw there, if you're going to take him for his word, wherever you saw that he took on the role and he brought that role to life. And I remember seeing that cat in Malcolm X, man. That brother to me became Malcolm X by midway through that movie. I thought I was watching Malcolm X. But Mr. Charles, when you hear of him opening up and sharing innermost details of his life and basically understand this, he's been drug and alcohol free for just about 10 years. Your reaction to it, sir?
No, first of all, I appreciate the honesty because somebody on that level, and Maurice mentioned about how he was probably feeling conflicted receiving the praise from Chadwick. I think I appreciate the honesty because when you're on that level and you're making money and the public only sees what they see. You can be a hypocrite and do whatever, and nobody would ever really know. So I appreciate the honesty from him on that, and what he was going through and what he needed to do for himself. And what on that point as well, I think it's important to take from what he said and so many others, but particularly from him, is to start to understand, or what I say, know thyself. You got to know who you are, man. You got to understand what you can deal with, your strengths, your weaknesses. So, granted, maybe he needed to do the whole sobriety thing, but some people, other people, may not need to go that far because they know thyself, because they might have had some traumas or issues in their life prior that has already had them adjust to whatever. But a point again is know thyself. So what you take from that is to understand, do an assessment of who you are, what you're dealing with, how close, what do you need to do in order to be as close as becoming the complete man or woman in your life. And I think that's major. And again, like you mentioned, these people with a lot of money that are seen as famous and almost perfect in a sense from the standpoint of what people aspire to have and what they want in their lives, for them to be honest and come out and forthright to kind of give you an idea to go, hey, you know what? We all got demons, we all got struggles, but this is what I had to do for me, and now I'm moving forward.
Yeah, we all battle something at one point in time in our life or another. And yeah, know thyself. Beautiful statement there, my brother. I want to take some time to pay tribute to our sponsor, but I want to give you guys a question first. I'm going to come back to you after this, and I will come back to you, Mr. Charles, with this one. Is that how have you treated drugs and alcohol in your life? Because it's not like none of us haven't done both or one or the other. And for some reason, we made choices to either indulge heavily or indulge lightly. But we'll talk about that in a little bit. Do you love podcasts? Have you ever thought creating your own podcast? Well, what are you waiting for? Get started at podup.com. Podup is one of the sponsors of this podcast. Thank you very much. And they would love to someday sponsor yours. Starting as easy as creating an account at podup.com today. Podup has everything you need to run a full professional show with over 35 different tools with AI integration. Get a 7-day free trial with no credit card required and 15% off when you use the code WhenBlackMenTalk15. Don't have time to start a podcast? Check out podallies.com. Get a team of podcast professionals to do all your website, social media, and editing work for your podcast. Pod Allies is an agency run by the folks who built the Pod Up podcasting software. Get started with them at podallies.com. Get 15% off when you sign up today for Pod Up or Pod Allies with code WhenBlackMenTalk15. Pod Up and Pod Allies can't wait to create with you and launch your own podcast. Mr. Charles, you know, we've all maybe have indulged in some form of drugs and alcohol throughout our lives. Basically, my drug use has been very minimum. Minimum. I think I took a puff on a joint twice in my entire life. Entire life. Now, alcohol has been a little different. I never overindulged. Kind of more was a recreational type of thing. But I know as I started to grow older, I moved away from alcohol. Whatever reason, it just, and it was, I mean, many times I said in my head, I was going to stop, but every now and then I might have a drink, whatever the case may be. And I find now I don't even want to do that. I'm definitely more, I've grown over the years to be more of a wine drinker from time to time, occasionally, and that's enough for me. But I want to know, and that's my treatment. Basically, I use alcohol and drugs in my life. I just never seen the need to basically run rampant with it. I'm not speaking against anyone else that may have, but that has been basically the history, the resume of my life with them both. But as we speak on this, how have you treated alcohol and drugs in your life, sir?
Let's say how's it treated me, because I've been to the circus, baby. I've been to the circus, and I ain't saying I've been no drug addict. I've been to rehab and nothing like that, but yeah, I've been to the circus. I've dealt with some issues and indulged in some things that might shock a few people. So, and I think part of it was just the surroundings, man, and what I've been around and what I've been exposed to, and most importantly, what I was exposed to when I was young. I've been around maybe family members or people I just knew, and I always said weird thing about me is growing up and even as an adult, I've always been that type of dude that the so-called good people, the goody two shoes when you coming up, the kids that go to school do the good things. I could relate to them, but I also could hang out with the knuckleheads and the thugs and the gangsters and the dope dealers and the people that smoking and drink. I mean, I'm a chameleon, man. I can fit in any situation and whatever. But to get to the point, when I say that drug and alcohol kind of did me, growing up, I watched my family. Some people abuse or it abused them, and I said, "How the hell am I going to deal with this?" So as a kid or young man, stuff I had to deal with early on, uh, because of what was going on in my family with alcohol, man, and seeing people being abused by alcohol. That's what I said. You say they abuse it, but no, the alcohol abused them, and saw their struggles with it. I never ever really wanted to drink. I never wanted to. I was never connected to drinking because I saw what it did to my family members and other people. So I didn't start drinking until the first time I really drank. I drank a beer is when I was a senior in high school, and it was horrible because of what had gone on in my family. So I didn't really do the drinking thing, but the drugs and the smoking and stuff like that, especially weed, man. I started smoking weed when I was in seventh grade, dog. Just be straight up, because it was around me, and people go, "Oh my God!" No, don't go, "Oh my God." Put this in perspective. Some of the stuff I had to deal with and go through as a young person, as a child, and I had to deal with on my own because that's just how it was, and I was taught to deal with it independently. There was a lot of stress and a lot of things or whatever, so I just need a break. So I get high, man. I get high for a little bit, an hour or two, whatever, just to kind of come off of it. And then I knew coming back out of this, though, you got to go to work. But I wasn't going to therapy, wasn't nobody talking to me about it. Nobody probably knew what I was dealing with. So there was a lot on my plate. So I get high, and then I was like, all right, cool. So I'm good. Come back, and I finished my job, whatever I had to do. And then there was a point that I just kind of learned because I said, I think I smoked weed all the way through college. I was selling weed, doing all kinds. Anyway, like I said, I've been to the circus, baby. So I've tried different things early on, just trying to figure it out. But I also knew, particularly with alcohol, I just started drinking until I got to college. And once I dove in, baby, I dove in. I went to the circus. But two things I realized out of this whole thing is watching other people and what I was dealing with in my life. I decided no matter what the consequence of what I was going through, when I die, God willing, the creek don't rise. It would not be from drinking and smoking. My mom and my dad both had issues with smoking. Not no, I'm talking about cigarettes. My mother had tuberculosis, and that's what she passed away from. My dad ended up with emphysema because he smoked a lot too. So I never ever was a guy that wanted to smoke cigarettes ever. I just thought it was the worst thing. I thought it was disgusting. I saw how it destroyed the lungs of my parents. My mother had one lung when she had me because of tuberculosis, and it was not curable at this time. At that time. So I hate cigarettes to this day. You want to do that, I ain't mad at you. But I never understood cigarettes from the standpoint either because I'm like, why am I destroying my lungs? I ain't getting nothing from it. Maybe some people get off on nicotine. If I need to feel something, bruh, why am I doing this with nicotine? I ain't feeling nothing. I'm destroying my body. So me and cigarettes, I tried it like twice and I was done. If I'm gonna do something to my body or if I'm gonna take a risk, I was like, shit, I need to feel something. Weed, that was a whole different thing. But I also knew not to continue to indulge where it controlled me. So smoking, definitely not. Drinking, I saw it where family members died from cirrhosis of the liver, other people on dialysis. And I said, when you watch that destroy somebody's life daily, I was like, nah, man, I don't ever want to be out of control. So finally, to bring this around full circle, when I was finishing up in graduate school, after I left Wilberforce, when I finished up going to the graduate school, I made a decision. I said, you know what? I don't like to be out of control. And when you smoke and when you drink, most of you are out of control. And I made a decision to stop smoking weed, man. And that was back, ooh, Lord have mercy, like 90, bro. That's a long time. And to this day, I've not smoked a joint. I've smelt it. I've been around people. I've been tempted to taste them gummies. I ain't gonna say I ain't gonna roll that way one day, but I've been a lot of places. But I promise you, since '90, when I graduated graduate school, I have not smoked weed, and I ain't mad at those. I've been around it. I done taste. I didn't connect anyway. I still done connected some people. God help me. I'm just saying. That's what that I'm going. I've been to the circus. Let me wrap this up. So I've been connecting people still a little bit, but I have no desire to do that. But I just knew that to be in control of my life and then also be connected to the Lord, I did not need to smoke, drink. I don't even like caffeine, bruh. I only really drink soda like that because I like to be in control of my life. So even though today I'm not saying I'm holier than now, let me rectify that for purify that with y'all that are listening that know me. Okay, I know what you put your head up, turning your mouth up, looking up in the air, rolling your eyes. I'm still a social drinker. I still drink, but now I'm a social drinker because I drink with people. If you were in my people, we can sit there at a session, and who knows how long I drink. I might drink. We drink all night. But tomorrow, the next day, and when I'm by myself, I don't need it because I want control, and I love the control, and I think that allows me to connect with the Lord from the standpoint of what I need. So again, coming back to, I've been to the circus here and there, but I also have it in perspective because one thing I know, finalize it. Thank y'all for listening to my soliloquy. Is that I don't need alcohol and drugs to be the best me.
I love what we do here, gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what we do when we get together. We have conversation, and we just love for it to go anywhere. And it takes a lot for anyone, man or woman, to be honest enough with himself and to be vulnerable to speak out and say some things. And if one thing I know, most people run from the truth about who they are, what they've done, and how they stand, and they'll sell you something different. So when we have these conversations and we're opening up, we're not running away from anything. And I'm just happy that we have a platform that we can put it out there where other people can hear it. And I'll advise others to do the same, man. If you don't have anyone that you can't open up and share, find someone. Find someone that you can basically speak to in an openness, a realness, because all the other stuff you're doing ain't about a hill of beans. Mr. DeMaurice, for the most part, sir, coming to you and basically want to understand because how drugs and alcohol have basically been in your life.
Yeah, I haven't been to the circus, but I have peeked through the tent every now and then.
Oh man.
Yeah, growing up on both sides of my family, you saw alcohol use a lot. I know I've seen, weed use, but I've never really been exposed to, the harder drugs like the cocaine or heroin, and I thank God for that. I've seen the effects of that. I never understood, even growing up and even now, why people kind of use drugs to get drunk or black out or kind of just lose themselves, and then you kind of start thinking that some people are going through some things that they're trying to self medicate, and so. When I was coming up in high school, I really didn't indulge in drinking at all because I saw what it did to my parents and what it did to family members. And in college, I might have had some wine coolers. And I remember my first trip to Germany. Me and my brother hung out, and that was kind of like when I got into harder liquors. And it was, for me, it's always been about socializing and just enjoying the moment. It hasn't been like, well, I'm gonna do this every day, and I'm gonna, as soon as I get off work, I'm gonna do such and such and such. 'Cause I've seen people do that, and I've seen how it really destroyed their lives. And for me, I always wanted to be in my right mind and be focused. And not to say that I haven't indulged in weed and edibles every now and then, but I remember becoming a bartender years ago, and used to serve people drinks and just see how the drinking habits and the habits of different people. And as a bartender, you get a bird's eye view of who has problems and who really doesn't. And to me, it just never I could never kind of grasp that concept of why would you just keep drinking, 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 and to the point of passing out. That's not what that's for. It's supposed to be recreational. It's supposed to be social. So I remember when Pop came to see me a couple of years ago, and I got this case where it's all these alcohols in this case. And Pop was looking at it one day, and he's like, "Boy, there'd been a day when I would that would have been all gone by the end of this weekend." But watching him and how things went in his life, I don't know if it just gave me this certain control or wanting to be in control of the substance instead of the substance being in control of me. But you always hear this phrase, if you're going to drink, drink responsibly. And that's something that, when I really kind of started, and I went to Germany when I was in my 30s. So I'm kind of a late bloomer, but I had wine coolers every now and then, wine and stuff like that. But then I got into tequila and started tasting stuff. And especially when I became a bartender, sometimes you have to taste the stuff to allow to kind of inform people of, hey, this is going to be a smoother taste. This is that. This has a little bite to it, blah, 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 to be able to describe it. But it was never to the point where, oh, I got to go to meetings or this is out of control, things of that sort. So for me, it's and maybe it's a gene that people have, or maybe it's something in their DNA which they're more susceptible and falling into that matrix. But it was never for me something that I'm going to lose control and I'm going to be somewhere where I'm blacked out, laid out in the street. And you hear these horror stories of people. One of my good friends who told me she blacked out and she doesn't even know how she got home. And I'm like, well, how do you get to that point? Why do you get to that point? Why do you feel a need to do that? So, but yeah, that's always been the mystery to me. Why people really kind of overindulge so much that they lose control of what they're thinking, what they're saying, all that other stuff, because those things have consequences. When you drink it, and they're not called spirits. You know, they're not called spirits for no reason. You, something else enters you when you overindulge, and you become a totally different person. And I've seen the transformation of a lot of people who, whether they're using, especially alcohol or cocaine and stuff like that, they just become another person. It's not it's them, but it's not them. And I never wanted to get to that point ever. um, if I, peek through the curtain of or the the tent of the circus. I never wanted to I didn't want to step my foot in until I became part of the circus. I never wanted to do that. So that was a great analogy. I just did not want to see the lions, tigers, and bears. Oh my, and just be up in the lion's cage and riding the elephants and all that. I didn't want that. I never wanted that. I just wanted to, just socialize and get a little quick buzz, and I'm good. But yeah, that's always been a mystery to me why people really just indulge and why my family members. We had an uncle. I know you remember this story, Mark, where the doctor told him, like, you take one more drink, you're gonna die. And he took one more
Yeah,
drink and he died. And
yeah,
that should have been the sign right there, like, hey, stop this. But he got to a point in his life that his body, he felt in his mind that he really needed it. And I guess he thought the doctor was playing, but the doctor wasn't playing.
yeah,
You know, if you take one more drink, you're out of here. And he just could not turn it around. And I never, I always remember that story. And like, I never want to get to that point.
yeah. Speaking of that uncle, I'm gonna kind of tap into that real quick because I remember he was in the hospital just before he passed, and my brother Larry and I went to go visit him, and he was in there, and he said to me, "Hey, you mind bringing me some?" I'm like, "Bringing me some cigarettes?" I'm not bringing no cigarettes. Hey, you're in the hospital. You don't need to be in here smoking. And he was like, "Okay." He laughed at all that. And I was angry at the mere fact that he even suggested to me, and I would do something that stupid. So as you know. the visit went on a little while later. I got up to leave, and I'm mad. And Larry and I are walking out, and I see one of our cousins. I don't know if you remember. I can't think of his. I think his name might have been Darius, but it was like his left hand man.
Mm-hmm.
And he was coming in, and he's carrying a paper brown
Yeah. Yeah.
supermarket bag, and I knew what they had inside there because I
Mm.
already knew. I knew. You know what I mean? A part of me wanted to knock it out of his hand, and I just walked around. The next day, he fell into a coma and never came out of it.
Yeah.
The next day, fell into a coma. So when you see stuff like that, I was already against, getting ripped up like that anyway. But that right there, man, that should kind of steer you straight or do whatever. I didn't even need that, but it angered me. I've always cared about him in a sense, but that's how he wanted to live his life, and he lived his life to let his life go in that particular way. But I'm glad that you and I saw him and others and learned from it. Understand that's not what was in our route. That's not our destiny. But I do believe this too, and I always felt this because for me, the times I've been intoxicated, it's cool, but I'm not waking up to do that again because to me it wasn't that good. It was good, but damn, it wasn't that good.
Mm.
Only thing I associate, I want to wake up and do again is sex. Keep doing that over and over again, not getting high. I'm sorry, that's just me. So sometimes I look at basically overindulging and you're doing those things. And I kind of looked at Denzel. I'm gonna go back to him for a second. I know he said he started young, but sometimes I wonder what are they running from? Because a lot of times when something's always chasing you, something's always coming behind you, you find relief, you find comfort, and you find something good and basically altering the mind and staying high because at that point when you're high, it's not chasing you mentally. And I think some folks get caught up in that. And some people get caught up in their environment at a young age to where they're hanging around, people that's doing certain things. My thought was, if you're doing that, I'm not with you. If you're going to be about that. And I remember it was so interesting the night of my prom, and 16, 17 years old, and I had convinced my father to allow me to drive his Deuce and a quarter, his Buick, his baby, to the prom. It took some convincing, trust me. So I pull up to the prom and I'm getting out, I have my tux on. The young lady I'm with, I get her out, we stand out. And a few guys I'm in school, when I went to school with, they had this big bottle of Jack Daniels. Come on, Mark, have some. I'm looking at them like, y'all idiots. Because first thing I'm going to do, that's going to mess with my head. I'm not going to have myself a good time. And if I come out here and crash my car, I mean, my father's car, I'm done. I'm done. I'm, I'm done. I'm literally done. If I crash this, he was good enough to basically allow me, give me the responsibility to drive his vehicle for the night. I'm not coming out here doing something that stupid. I'm not doing it. You all can drink that to the bottle's empty. And I walked away from them. But that was my mindset. And that's been my mindset throughout life. I'm grateful for that. I don't knock anybody for what they do, what they've dealt with, because we all come from different environments. We come from different things. We all see things, people differently. But I want to just tap into that for a second because, I think sometimes, Mr. DeMaurice and Mr. Charles, we do things a form of medication. Sometimes it's alcohol, sometimes it's drugs, sometimes it's food for that matter. But sometimes is it possible that we're running from something or some things that just literally are chasing us? So I'll come to you first, Mr. Maurice. I love the relationship you have with your pops, man, where you two basically do what you do, the open honesty that you two share, and again, for what he can bring to you and say. And you're very blessed, man, to be at this point in your life and have your dad available to you, man. I mean, in all phases of life, the things you guys do is beautiful. You know, it's interesting. Society, we live in a world where, especially for the young, think about this for a second, because you look at these young college kids, they can't wait to, a lot of them can't wait to get to college and just drink like there's no tomorrow. Because society, the world, the marketing sells you this is the best life. You're at a party, ah, everybody's just drinking, and they make you feel if you're not doing that, you're not living. And the reality is, you got a lot of folks in their 40s, 50s, and 60s still got that mindset. They feel like they gotta be out somewhere slushing it down, and they may not be running from anything, but they feel like it's been sold to them, and can't take it, unsell it. That if they're not doing that, they're not living a life. And if you look on social media, a lot of times that's what they're showing you. I'm out, I'm doing this, I'm drinking this, I'm doing that. That's a part of life. In reality, that's a small part of life. But if you're trying to show me that, you're really showing me you're not living at all. Because you don't have to fake to me you're living a good life. It's not even important to me whether you're living a good life. So if you think you have to show that to me, it says right then and there, you don't know what you're doing. You're not living a full life. Mr. Charles, I want to come to you with this because, the same thing about chasing, because a lot of times folks are kind of feel like something's coming at them. Mr. Demery spoke about his father, what he felt, the things he was going on that kind of stayed there. And I always kind of felt that about alcohol too and drugs. You could do that so much, but it doesn't eliminate what you're going through. In reality, whatever you're facing, those burdens, those things, my thought to that, you should give that to God. Place it at his feet, leave it there, and move forward. To some people, that's easier said than done. I understand that's just my thought to it. But when you hear about, being chased, I want to get your reaction to it because sometimes that's the foundation why folks just overindulge.
Yeah, man. When I the whole time both you were talking, I thought about it. I thought about what I've been through, my situation, and people have been through worse. And I mentioned about the circus and thought about my family and stuff. And then I had to say, okay, how do we put this in a way that it really resonates for everybody? Because we all have go through stuff different, feel differently about different things. So with that being said, I think a lot of it, like you said, some people, as you mentioned about Demarice's dad, you know, people drink or get high sometimes to get away from that pain, and it is a lot about self medication. And from my experience, it was all about understanding that people want to dull the situation because it's hard to deal with it head on. And from the outside, you can say, I don't know why they keep drinking. I wish you would just stop. And then you go, because you're mad, because you're saying it doesn't make sense to a lot of people that are not connected or have never been through that. So they say, I don't know why you're doing that to yourself. But what I think sometimes that some people in viewing these situations, they don't understand the magnitude of the pain, bruh. Like when you, for instance, for me, if you the amount of death in a person's life. I think about my dad. My dad was 41 years old. My mom passed. My dad had to raise me as a 4-year old kid by himself with a limited education. That was all on him. And he made promises to my mom. But as I watched him struggle, he worked every day, did everything, and then once he did get to a point where it probably came too much and he started diving into alcoholism and whatnot, I was mad, but at the same time, I was like, damn, you've been carrying me for a decade and some change. You probably just broke, man. It came too damn much. And then, oh, we'll go to rehab. Well, shit, rehab ain't always that easy, bro. Because you got to understand, that's why I say know thyself. But it is hard as hell for some people. And then you go to society, you deal with things like that. And the question I ask is, when in the hell and what right does society have to put a deadline on grief, man, and what you're going through? Oh, you need to go over. Get just go and go back to work. Are you nuts? Some of the things people use alcohol and drugs to deal with would destroy other people, crumble them, and would even kill them, brother. But we in this society want to simplify stuff. Until you've been to the damn circus and been through some deep, it's hard, bruh. So I never ever really talk about people or try to ridicule them for what they're going through. And I do agree that the Lord is right there. I mean, you really need to try to come full circle with therapy or whatever, or also have a connection with the Lord because it can be hard, man. It can be hard as hell to overcome. And those that overcome it, kudos to them because some of us mask who we are until you get home by yourself at night and look in the mirror and you in there crying because you don't know what to do and you become a victim because you become a victim to the drugs and the alcohol. So it takes some real strong people, however they get through it, men and women, to overcome these things. And last point on this is you mentioned earlier about the factor that people really never indulged before in their lives. They became late bloomers going to the party. So let's say you turn 40 years old, you start making a bunch of money, and you never did drugs or drink at all in your life. Then you get bored at 40, and then you because you're 40 and you have this money, you start doing stupid stuff like doing cocaine. You ain't never had cocaine until you were 40 years old. How fucking stupid is that, bruh? If you never had it, why even start? For those that have been there and done that, yeah, I told you I've been to the circus. You don't understand the magnitude and ramifications of what it can do on your body. And I've never been that damn bored. Well, oh, let me try this because I don't know what else to do. I always found other things to do, but I don't know, man. I think sometimes what we need to do, if you see a person and what they struggle, they've been through some things, let's really put yourself in their shoes to try to understand what they had to overcome before we start becoming so judgmental. And not saying we always do that, but just understand. Because some people go through some real struggles day through day. And until you've been in that situation or have a little idea what they struggle with, you have no idea what it takes to overcome and step across the threshold to the next step in your life.
I'm gonna do something here that we don't normally do, but I want to start doing this from time to time because we're gonna end this episode in a little bit. But I want to come back to you, Mr. Charles. So, hey, stay close, my brother. Stay close. Um, for our next episode, I want us to take this with us and give this some thought. And for you folks that are listening, I want you to do the same thing if you choose to. You know, choices are made at tender young ages, and it plays a pivotal part in our life as we, live on into later life. So I want us to think about and recall some choices or choice we made younger that had a huge impact on our life. Something to think about. Mr. Charles, I'm gonna come back to you, man. And we talked earlier about, calling somebody out, whatever the case may be. And I hope you don't think that I'm calling you out with this, man. But, bro, I don't know where you are with the progression of your book, but it needs to come out, my brother, because from what I know about it, it's going to help so many other people, man. What you have in it, what you have in your life. I look at you and I see where I don't care what you've been through, the circus, you could have been to Mars, whatever, man. To me, God has kind of put a shield around you, kept you and moved you in spite of anything you may have done, and move you to the point where you are and have you be the man that you are and the man that you represent when you come on this show. And I'm grateful for that. But at the same time, man, I want that book out, bro. And I want it out today, not tomorrow, not next year. I want it out today because I know some of the stuff that's in it. I know how it can really help others. And it's like it's time, my brother. It's time. And I don't know, what's really going on with it. And whatever you need me to do to get it there, I'm there for you. Because I know you already got Mr. Brees online, doing it. But you're sitting on something, man. God has given you something that the world can benefit from, in my honest opinion. And bring it out, man. Bring it out, bro. It ain't got to be the Mona Lisa. It ain't got to be perfect. Bring it out, man. So if you want to respond to it, if you think I'm calling you out, I'm criticizing you, let it go. But I'm telling you now, man. I want it out tonight, Charles. Not tomorrow, tonight. What you got?
D. Maurice, you see what I'm saying? you know, yeah, look, what and I'm laughing because it's funny because, in all seriousness, I do. You just don't understand. I don't know if you understand how important this is to me. How much I want to do it for, not for myself, but for to recognize my dad, but also to help somebody, man. And I'm nowhere near close to it, but sometimes, because I've been, Lord knows, I've been talking about this book for forever, it seems like, and people say, "Yeah, we waiting on it," like you just said, Mark. But sometimes I feel like Jonah, man, and I and the Bible, the book of Jonah, the story of Jonah. God told Jonah what he needed Jonah to do to go speak to the people. And Jonah was like, "Yeah, all right, yeah, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it." Or I don't want. Then he said, "I don't want to do it." And he goes off on his own thing. He goes on the ship, a boat, and God's like, "You didn't hear what I said, did you?" And Jonah's on that boat, and the boat's rocking, and it seemed like it's about to capsize and whatnot. And the people was like, "Yo, he coming for you, man. You gotta get your ass off the boat." You know, People was like, "Nah, man, it's cool, it's cool." No, the hell it ain't. You gotta go. Where I'm going? You jumping off this one? You going into the sea, bro? And of course, about the whale and whatnot. And Jonah was in the bed, in the in the midst of the whale. And then God spoke to Jonah, and Jonah was like, "Yo, for real? I mean, you think about it." Eventually, God told him that I I gave you a commandment to go, or a command to go speak to these people. And he was like, "Yo, why can't such and such go talk to them? Anybody can talk to them." And God said, "Yeah, you're right. But here's the thing. God says, I need you to talk to these people. They need to hear from you. That's why I told you." And once he went over, he understood what God was saying, why he was received in such a manner. And what I mean by the connection with Jonah, Lord knows I'm not comparing myself to Jonah. But it's just, I see things weird like that. But what I'm saying to you with this book is, I know it needs to happen. It was a gift to me. I've been working on it. I mean, I literally went to a point. I got a professional editor to do it, to work with me, and she gave me the final edits. And now I'm at the point, literally now, of going through it for like one of the final times, to making sure it's what I need. And then at that point, all I need to do is maybe add some pictures, make sure all of the information as far as the with recognizing the references and stuff that I use is correct. But I've been putting it off, and I'm like, "Man, you said you was gonna do it this day, that day, that day." So I told myself, realistically, and I'm very close. In fact, I can tell you how many pages it is already, and what page I'm at, the final edit. But I wanted to do this. I've been saying, "Oh, it's gonna be out by this time." So I told myself, realistically, I'm gonna finish this edit and whatnot before the end of the year. Today is the 24th of November. It's supposed to be out by my dad's birthday on the 15th. Anyway, I'm gonna have this edit and everything locked up and ready to go by the end of the year. And in the interim, I'm going to be looking how I want to do it. I may self publish or whatever. I'm really going to dive into that aspect. But I just need to finish the book, and I'm very close. I have it. Again, to you, like you said, Mark, it's a blessing. So much support from different people, because I promise you, I didn't even think I had a book until I talked to some people, and then my lovely brother D. Maurice like, "Not only do you got one book, you got two. You need to write two." I was like, "Man, what the? I'm barely doing this one." But bless his heart, he like, "Look, man," and this is my last point on this. So I am very close. I will get this done soon. But bless his heart, D. Maurice is like, he's a very technical dude. And one thing I learned about him is, and I told him it's the reason why he and I did not connect in college. He shared his stories. I was at the circus, baby. He wasn't even peeking at the tent back then. He was just like, "That's a damn shame. They on the side of the road. They need help, but I can't stop. I got to keep going." So eventually, down the road, we were able to connect, man. And it's been a beautiful thing. Like, for instance, what he would do is, he's done for me is, He knew I was trying to work on this book and try to get it together. So he writes a book, and he does the ultimate thing that you're not supposed to do to a friend, but he don't give a damn because he knows it helps me. He asked me to write the forward to one of his books. And I said, yo, man, what are you doing? He goes, oh, man, I just need you to do this. I said, no, the hell you don't. Get somebody else. I'm not the guy. But when he asked me, I knew at that point I needed to lock in because I respected him enough and I knew how great of a talent he is. And with that being said, I needed to be on point with when I came with him too because I wanted to let the world know how great this brother is as an artist. And I dove in and I told him before, I said, I hope you like it because I'm feeling you. And I said, I'm feeling this art piece that you're putting out. And when you ask to be a part of it, I'm gonna do what I got to do. So that's his way of helping you by putting you to work and letting you see inside yourself of your greatness as well. So yeah, man. So we're on the road, Mark. We're close. We're gonna get this done before the end of the year, and we need to just in general. I just need to get this done. I'm going to, and mostly because I know it's the right thing to do, and out of the greatness and pureness and sincerity of my heart, I hope it really helps other people because that's really what it's all about.
Yeah. There's no doubt, man, in my mind that it will, bro. I'm not even gonna. The hope word ain't strong enough. It will, man. It definitely will, bro. Whenever you bring it to fruition, we will well receive it, and look forward to have you come here and talk about it when it's done. But yeah, I know what I heard, man. I know what some things that you have sprinkled on, and I know what it's spoken said to me. So if it moves me, I can imagine what's going to do to others. And yeah, man, it's just when you're ready, bro. When you're ready, I know it's your baby. And as this Mr. Marie said, I'm sure you got two. You may have three, man, that you sitting on. But sometimes, I'll say this as artists, and we all are artists in different ways and things we do in life. Sometimes we're hesitant because we're afraid of what other people are going to think. And if you remove that sometimes and don't give a damn about that, it kind of speeds you up because it's what you are, and that's one thing about I love about people. We spoke earlier about Joe Mazzola. Just say what you got to say, do what you got to do. Those that like it, do. That don't, f them, f them, all the way, man. F them. As Bernie Mac was saying. Anyway, gentlemen, I'm gonna put the lid on this one. I want to thank you all for doing what you all always do. Bring it strong. We'll get together about 6-7 days. We'll do it again. I love you too. I love you all. You know God loves us the most. Take care of yourself. Thank you for giving us an ear.